Um, Yikes.
Weekend. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying this is the beauty of working autonomously, right? We have to, well, at least for those who are uncomfortable with uncertainty, this is something which, from a characteristic standpoint, it would help to actually start to be comfortable with, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the most important things I learned in my life, dealing with uncertainty, because I always say that security, in terms of IT security, is a mind state. So,
True. Indeed, indeed. Cool. So, with all that in mind, with the what's the word? With the apologies already sort of taken care of, the intention is to, what is it? To communicate the ideas that we discussed last night amongst each other and with Roberto, and sort of get his perspective on it, if I got that right.
Yeah, exactly. And I have these 4 sticky notes to guide us through today's session and the agenda over here. But first, let me see.
Mirror.
Oh, maybe it did work. Okay, hold on. There's Tavo. Got him. We got him. And how about one? Just waving in front of his mouse. Okay. Well, so maybe he'll come find us. What's up, Tavo?
Hello.
Yo.
All
I
right.
was just coming from a talk made by Rodrigo, asked what was collecting feedback, what to do in the catalyst. So I added some points we actually had written down when we had one book club meeting, and we talked about anonymity and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, we still didn't do it. I told once that I will maybe make a proposal. So I had this document, and now I thought, oh, I could use it. Maybe they make proposal. But yeah, now I'm interested to see what's going to happen here.
And Carlos was just sharing on the dev call about the metadata challenge that's upcoming. So we might want to go back and watch that video later. And then Fari was also talking about the Glow UX UI. So that's ongoing right now. All right, but let's just see if we can move through these things. Okay, and so is now on the board. Maybe that means he'll be popping in soon. Okay, so I want to go 1, 2, 3, 4 through these sticky notes, and here's the agenda associated with that. So just want to do a quick, give everybody a chance to say hi and say what you've been thinking about for the last week or few days. Then really look at the vision for this project together, make sure we all agree on that in the first place, adapt it if we have to. And then once we agree on that, say, okay, what's technically the best approach to accomplishing that? Finally, really move into formally specifying the work that actually has to be done. So who wants to just share? What you been up to, this project or otherwise, and etc.
I can share if I remember. Yeah, I've been working with IPFS cluster, so we have this. Trying to push on my most familiar area on the project, the DevOps infrastructure, and I did set up this cluster to pin our RBDBs, IPFS objects, and so on. And also forked a project that existed, make it more usable, and publish it our own customized IPFS cluster, which allows you to spin up this locally or wherever with just three commands. Also, I've been iterating on this idea of having RBDB, as I was sharing with A. Maybe a good approach would be to have just one or a couple of RBDBs that serve as entry point for the events, organizers, wherever. But if we start linking objects, we don't really need to put them inside yet another RBDB, or like nesting that. We could just put those JSONs on IPFS and reference them from this entry point for the application, that will allow us to refresh entries and then expand accessing IPFS directly. So yeah, just that will simplify the schema. I think it could work without worrying too much building schemas that doesn't really make sense or stop us like defining how we deal with this inside RBDB, because in the end, yes, they are just files, as we exposed it on the last coding on chain session. Yeah, I've been thinking on that, and I think we could have a proof of concept implemented the diagram soon. Thanks to OCG snippet, we could go on that and expanding. What else? Besides that, oh, cool. I've been contacted from I've been talking with Vicente from Emurgo. He has some idea of using NFTs. He started a thread in the forum for making a standard for NFTs, touching metadata, pointing to IPFS objects. So he wants to build this project as a side project outside Emurgo. It's something he hasn't talked to anyone just yet. Maybe we can share some workflows and pieces.
If I could add, I'm not sure what about NFTs are doing, but our team is doing an NFT on Chainlink, and we kind of could like maybe like connect, like you have a lift, and we don't know much about right now about Cardano, but if you're going through like some kind of making an NFT, we could maybe collaborate and put the same NFT on Chainlink and using the Ethereum like OpenSea and also wherever you can sell your NFT. So if any ideas about that? Then.
But the NFT, like anything, is going to be like an NFT almost, right?
Yeah, I'll be back to this
I'm a bit
conversation.
confused about the naming. When some people say it, it's like I'm gonna make an artwork, right? And when others like we're making this event ticketing system, and it's gonna be full of NFTs.
Yeah, we our goal is to like we have baby beans like these, like some toys, and we use them as a front to charity front for the company, and we will like making a first like some kind of proof of concepts about how to even sell it and how to legalize it, because we as a non-profit they are actually like grants but in a like a different way, so so we do it, but so that's what we need to do, or like what our goal is to have on as an NFT, and that is
right,
the charity version of toy.
Cool.
Can I ask who you meant when you said you talked about someone from Emurgo? You said a name?
Yeah, I said Vicente, which is the main developer for Yoroi Mobile. I worked with him like half a year. But yeah, this project doesn't is not something he even shared with Emurgo, he told me. So please don't tell. Well, I haven't.
No, I thought you meant someone else, because there was someone else making posts on the forum about a NFT standard. Alessandro.
Yeah, Alessandro from Berrypool. That's Yeah.
Yeah, I
All
know
right, so
he knows what he's talking about in this area as well. He's doing an NFT project. I mean, what that could mean anything, but
Yeah.
exactly.
but he is.
Wait, to bring
In
it back to
fact,
the agenda. No, yeah,
sorry.
sorry, Karen.
No,
In fact,
James maybe can share also how does the NFTs do the NFTs work on Ergo?
Yeah, I did a quick proof of concept. But yeah, hey, keep it going, because I agree. We want to stay on target.
yeah. Just to bring it back to the agenda, we were intending to have the first 20 minutes, to just sort of have this share out. I think I'll quickly, do mine and try to sort of keep it relevant to this. So to sort of summarize my journey so far in my intentions or explorations within this ticketing idea, I started out with the assumption, I started out exploring movies, realized that the assumption there, I had a number of sort of wrong / corrective assumptions. The first one was I thought that conventionally that the movie theater or cinema chain was, the valuable context. After that, I realized actually no, it's a movie. So I then redesigned the user experience and interface around, making the movie the key thing. And then after that, I realized actually I need to go a little bit further, because actually the point of value here is the individual, right? The human or the user. And given that, going with the assumption that we already know a number of things, a number of key things about this person, we can actually presumptively arrive at a solution, right? Contextual, right? In this case, figuring out what for the event, what time, etc., etc., that for the person would be best for them, and sort of present that in a way that they can then be able to edit it. So that has been an interesting sort of evolution for me. And obviously, part of that has been interesting. Additionally, because implementing things which further down the line, things like location, identifiers, dynamic, static location, stuff which once such an idea is realized, other people can come along and basically just repurpose it, and as I've said before, build the equivalent of a version of Airbnb or Uber, etc., right? Because all the salient information is there. So that has been my personal journey so far. Where I'm at right now is actually we're gonna I suppose touch on it a little bit further down in the meeting, and we spoke about it yesterday as well a little bit. Is that I've evolved into actually thinking of an event in a much more like specific and practical way, not so much in a movie theater context. Like I learned a bunch of interesting things there, but I'm thinking of an event as, say, for example, just trying to sort of time bank, right? If I want to buy some time with, say, for example, Roberto or someone, um treating that as the event, right? And sort of I've broken down everything from, okay, how do you actually create the identity and the context, to then how do you utilize, say, for example, an iframe of a React implemented calendar to then do the time, date selection, whatever, and then put in this request to then have this event with this person, right? It could be just like a little bit of advice. So this is, for me, a practical and rich way, especially considering the pandemic, right? We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're not gonna be going to movies or music festivals, etc. right now. Even once that happens, we can be able to build that quickly and easily. But I feel like my thinking so far is, in designing this thing right down to this particular level, it's great because what you have is the frequency of exchange. Like there isn't much inertia, because you're just dealing with two people. You're not dealing with a whole group of people who then have to arrive at a particular decision, in addition to having an event which happens less frequently, right? You're dealing with a high high frequency and high velocity problem, so to speak. So that's basically, you know, where my mind is at the moment. And yeah, I'm going to be visualizing some stuff, and I'm keen to hear once we move on to the talking about what the vision is and how we sort of proceed with it. I'm keen to just like hear different people's approaches and perspectives. Hey, nice to see you, Nick.
Likewise, good to be here. Where are the notifications, or where are these links scheduled? I keep missing the call to action.
Sorry, it's in the Gimbalabs Playground, and then I've been using the event ticketing channel. But I can.
Okay, perfect.
Let me think about a better way. Yeah.
No, that's on me. I think that's totally fine. Thank you, Roberto, for pinging. Glad I could join.
On Gimbalabs.com, and it converted to my time zone, so I was actually able to see exactly when in my time it starts.
The Zoom link is public now. That's right, on gimbalabs.com/calendar. One step at a time.
Awesome.
Yes.
Nick, Steve, Matt, and Soch, do you guys want to take like 20 seconds each to just tell us where you've been at?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start. So yeah, this past week, Gimbalabs has taken a backseat. I was preparing for my interview with Amazon that happened on Thursday. That went really well, and I was really grateful to be able to talk about Gimbalabs during a portion of it, and they were really impressed by that. So thanks, everybody. But now that's over with, and I'm just waiting for the call back and ready to dive back in.
Hey guys, I actually have been, I felt like a ball in a pinball machine this past week. I've been trying to catch up on about 4 different directions in Cardano, and but I just got out of a meeting with a lot of the Africans in WADA and ABCD this morning. I may be joining that team on a more active level, you know, but they've got so many people in their team, it's going to take a while before I get to know everybody and kind of flesh out things.
Nice.
But I'm excited about that because I feel like I can help them conceptually.
Awesome.
And they seem to like me so far. 3 of them anyway. 4 of them. So we'll see how that goes. But I you know, when I am involved in a Gimbalabs meeting, I always feel like, God, I wish I knew something so that I could help more, because you guys are doing some really hard work, and it's really complicated and technical, and I really appreciate it. And I want to keep up, even if I don't contribute. So I'm practicing being quiet.
I think there's an essential role. I'll be talking to Mercy later today as well, and I think there's an essential role of just being connective tissue. So let's keep that conversation going, Steve. And thanks for being here.
Sure.
Yeah, we've all been pinballs this week, I guess. Same thing with me, but I have been up to, you know, getting my knowledge up in Cardano specifically. I make YouTube videos for Gimbalabs to just help with education for developers. So this week I've been researching the extended UTXO model, and it was just really great to understand how Cardano added this like state machine to the UTXO model. So I see how that's going to go work with smart contracts. So I think I'm going to keep on diving into that subsection so I can be useful in, you know, contributing to the logic around the future smart contracts that we're going to be developing in Gimbalabs. So excited for that. And video coming out soon.
What movie are you going to reference in regards to EUTXOs?
I don't know, no movies this time. It's going to be mostly like useful motion graphics to like illustrate these ideas of the UTXO model. So excited to show that.
Awesome. Thanks for working on that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, shall I give it a go? Past week, mostly been focusing on sort of the more abstracted form of thinking about token tokenometry, or whatever you want to call it, tokenomics, sort of figuring out like how the internal ecosystem of an app works and how you can formalize those things, and a bit of work more on the side of like, yeah, how to organize teams in combining that also with token stuff. So I'll share some of that. And a small thing, I also missed the link, and I know it's partly on me, but I do have an idea if we add to the Gimbalabs Playground an announcement channel, and then only use it for like, here's the meeting right now, and here's the link, or the message that you showed, right? The message that you sent, it was good for an announcement channel. But then I would definitely like just for myself put the notification setting on that channel on all messages if I know that's the only thing that's going to be posted there, and then we chat about it if we want to in the other channel. That would work for me really well.
Maybe another private channel for this announcement for the people who is actually working on the project. So we can add here, mention just that group of people. Maybe
Yeah,
like
an alternative is make a role that has no like extra permissions or anything, just playground, current
Yeah, that's what I
playground
was about to
people,
say. Yeah, that
and
makes
then
more
you
sense.
can not
Reference
make it
them.
private, but tag in the message playground, and then everybody who has the playground role gets the message, but others can see it if they want to.
Yep,
Right.
that makes more sense. Yeah.
And next level is a bot where we can assign the role to ourselves. But I already talked with, had some conversations already with Roberto.
Yeah, we'll make those changes right after this meeting today. All right, cool. So our goal is to reach consensus on the vision over here. Whoops. So we had a good conversation last night. Matthew, A, me, some of the Adopt guys. Who was the sixth person there? Well, somebody else was there. Oh, great.
Juan,
Yeah, Juan was there and OCG were there.
OCG, yeah.
All right, so
Ryan.
coming out of this meeting, if you were there, hopefully this reflects what we talked about. And if you're seeing it for the first time, great. I drafted this vision for this project. We want to build a highly extensible, broadly accessible, and robustly documented set of tools that allow anyone to create their own event ticketing system, however they might define an event. Go, beat it up. What would you clarify? What would you change?
Looks good.
Okay, can you? What's the idea of this round we're doing now? Maybe I missed the explanation.
Our
but,
goal, yeah, our goal is to reach a group consensus on the vision for the work we are currently engaged in. And I propose starting that by saying, right, by naming, elucidating the vision. And once we are all in agreement that this is the vision of the work, then we can dive into a few more details.
Like I also like we read like first pull this for a specific case, then generalize. Is this most important part? And if I disagree, then I just say something. So we go through the.
So yeah, we're going to get to the how in just a moment. And before we talk about how, I want to know what's missing from this vision statement.
Okay.
Personally, I like it. Like it's a way that I think at this moment in time, our energy is best used to try and attack the problem in this way. Because what's great about this is actually we arrive at communicating what exactly or the nature of a DApp, right? Because I feel like that's another word which people are just like, people think, oh, DApp that's equals an application which lives on the blockchain, when actually no, that's not the reality. And building it in an extensible way that's also accessible, points towards us actually building stuff that creates compounding value, right? Like both of like they feed into each other, right? The accessibility and the extensibility.
I also agree with that. I think we will find building blocks that we can abstract as we go building this specific use case. Building those blocks, given that there are so much uncertainty, so much pathways to explore, it's a bit more difficult to me to even imagine at this moment. Like, I don't know, the meta handler was a very specific thing, but it's already something that I don't know how to abstract to be more reusable. Yeah, maybe by doing, we find this, like the identity provider, how we are building that for this use case. Okay.
Well, I think you just defined an action item there. Abstract the metadata handler. That's like definitely a thing we should add.
It's already, for me, it's ready to go. Because the single thing I was looking for was a URL that you could click and trigger events. And for that, the triggering action, it's something you need to, these schemes need to be registered on the browser or in the operating system. So you have the library to parse the metadata, but all you need is to register those URLs and do things on applications. But the handler for the URL, it's there. It just performs some request to a GraphQL endpoint and handles this custom URI. So it's already abstracted because that was the minimum idea. We could go and do some more weirder stuff with it, but
yes, okay, I understand.
That's already what I was thinking about.
Quick question: can anyone see my video?
I see the board right now. I don't see the video.
Okay, never mind. I think my
Should
camera.
I unshare for a moment?
No, your camera's not working. Eh?
Is it? Oh, okay.
Yes.
I've no idea. I've tried to restart the window, the browser, and it's fine. It's fine. But I just think it's easier whenever people are speaking, if if you've got your camera on, for people to kind of understand you. But it's fine. Let's just carry on.
Okay.
I have also a question about the vision. Is it something you want to share and people know that what vision you have? Because to me, this statement feels too big to when you start a highly extensible, broadly accessible, robustly documented, and then you say your actual vision, then I don't know the second person who says, hey, they are doing this highly visible, they're robust, that thing, but the vision is lost.
It's a great question, Tavo. This vision statement is internal facing only. Yeah, this is to help us be clear on what we are doing. And I don't have if anybody ever wants to share this beyond this group, fine. And at some point, it'll probably be valuable to share it outside of this group, but inside the Gimbalabs community. But I don't intend for this to serve any useful purpose outside of Gimbalabs, right? What's going to tell the story of this project outside of Gimbalabs is achieving extensibility, accessibility, and documentation.
Okay, right.
If I may just quickly add on to that, I feel like there's an opportunity here to have the hierarchy. We've got the vision, right, which communicates, at a higher level, and we've got missions, right, within that vision. And I feel like, for me at least, the missions are sort of, different sort of explorations of different definitions of an event, right? So I don't know, something like uh going to a movie is slightly different to doing something else, or going to a concert, or something. um right? So I feel like those would then be missions, just for those hierarchically who are like, oh, the vision is like lacks specificity. I think if you think of it that way, mission actually allows for specificity of event definition.
And that's why I
Yeah,
chose the words robustly documented, because to me, when I unpack that, that's what it means to say, here's all the ways you can use this.
Yeah.
So it's on the comms team to deliver. The mission of the comms team is to deliver on the robust documentation.
I just have something to nitpick on just like the copy.
Yep.
Just to make it more clear. So I'm asking myself, however, that last bit, however they might define an event. What does that mean? It's like, so they can create their own event ticketing system. However, they can also just define an event on the platform, like on our ticketing system, or what does that mean?
Yeah, I can see the need for clarity. So everybody is interested in a different kind of event. A has been focused on movies. I like the idea of a music festival. Somebody else might consider an Airbnb rental to be an event.
Oh, yeah.
All of those people have a different definition for event, and this system should support all of them eventually. Right. That's the high extensibility. And so if that's the idea I'm trying to communicate, let's make those words clearer.
Yeah, for me, the vision works also because it is a bit vague about that, but I kind of like that because it makes it clear to us as the team that it's more important to focus on the broad use case than make it very workable for one specific thing. If you have some broad, even just explanations of how you could build all kinds of different event ticketing systems without even having built any one, right? But you have really clear, well research with prototypes in different areas, then that is more towards the vision than making one app that actually works, but is very limited in its scope and doesn't teach many people about what else you can do with that kind of architecture.
James, I just want to say the idea to do like an Airbnb booking with this system, like that's a totally new curveball for me, and that's huge, right? Because on that level, it's also a booking agent.
Yeah.
And I might add that, event ticketing and booking agency, just to be clear how extensible it is, because that just goes in so many different directions.
And in this case, right, to put, I agree with you that potentially that could fit in this. And I'm going to tend just towards the brevity in this case. But again, this is for us, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And as long as we remember that what we're building may have uses beyond the initial one, and keep open to being surprised by it, right? We're the killer application of these tools, we might not even have bumped into it yet.
The killer application may be all these different applications, and everybody thinks that you've built 3 or 4 or 5 different things, but it's really just one, and so, as you build out the tools, and you go, say, first to movies, and then you go to music events, and then you go to, whatever, and everybody will think, wow, these guys are working hard, but, you're just using the same tools over and over and over again. And yet you've got all these seemingly different products.
Let's go. Yeah. Okay. So in the interest of time, like we can come back and we can revisit this, maybe every other week, just to say, hey, is this still what we're doing, right? But supposing that we agree on this, now let's talk about how. And this is one of the things we talked about last night. If we agree that this is the vision, what's the best way to do it? Do we first build a specific use case, then generalize? Or do we not even worry about use cases and focus on tools? And the consensus among our small group last night is that, you know, Roberto, I think I'd love to start by hearing your opinion, and then the rest of us can ask you questions about these two options. But what's your instinct when you see this?
Well, my instinct is project-based learning, and for that, you need to, I think you need to build a toy project. Then you can identify the pieces and abstract them, make generic objects projects for identity, for the workflow, smart contracts. But I think the most illustrative way for us, I mean, independently of the level of blockchain friendliness you have, is to start working on that. At least for me, it's I'm that type of person. I'm not good at building, naming libraries and then fleshing them out while doing the toy. I don't usually work like that.
How are you defining toy? Because I know you and I use that word a lot, but to be clear on that. Yeah,
it's actually a concept that someone from Vacuum Labs taught me. It's a project that might fail, lack of documentation, but shows a concept in a flappy way. For example, the meta handler, it parses URLs, it performs requests to GraphQL. Maybe it's not the best JavaScript, not maybe, it's not the best JavaScript, it's not well organized, but it shows the idea of having URLs that you can click, make an application, request data to GraphQL, Cardano GraphQL, render that data, and yeah, basically show the user an action. Say it's expanding a graph of JSON LD events that are located on OrbitDB, IPFS, wherever. Yeah, it's like an entry point. And to show that, I built this toy project that is messy. That's the way I usually do my little proof of concept in Bash script, usually, because it's my language. But that's the idea.
And so you're not worried about context when you build those toys?
Not really.
Yeah.
What I was thinking about was, I can't even remember. I think it was payment URL with context. Like we have the payment URLs, but you want to extend the context for a payment, and I was thinking on using metadata for that. But I cannot even remember. I knew we had to address content on Cardano metadata somehow, and this was my approach. And yeah, doing that, I built this extensible tool first. That in my personal context was the PGP use case.
my comments, I have some comments on this about making this decision. First of all, I have some worries about trying to define a general, like first building a general case and then creating specific use cases, because how do you know how to design what you're trying to design before you actually try to build something before? Like, and then what if you design something general first and then you go and build something specific and find that the foundation you built on doesn't support the specific use cases that you're trying to do? So that's a thing. And then on the other hand, from last night's discussions with A and James, we mostly we talked about the benefits of the generalizing first, is that we suck in more people to come in and collaborate because we have more different types of people that are interested in different things. And if we try something specific first, maybe some people will be like, I'm not into that, I'm going to move on. So that's our worries of doing a specific case. So I think I have presented the two pros and cons of taking one route versus the other. But I think there's like a synthesis of these two routes that we could take, which would be we're doing multiple specific use cases where, like, if we have a large enough mass of people, we can say, oh, I'm interested in building a specific use case in which we address a digital event. Who wants to work with me on that? And then, oh, I'm interested in a music event, and who's interested in building that specific use case. And in that way, we get more research on how, by doing multiple specific use cases at once, by grouping out, and then we come back later on and synthesize what we've learned, what's difficult, what's easy, and then we build a general use case from what we've learned in our little separate groups. Yeah,
I think that's a really valuable and important insight, that it's difficult to build from the top down general to specific, because it's really, really helpful to be like obsessed with the user and the use case, because that's what it's all about in the end. So going from the bottom up in that way, and I like your idea of separate groups, splitting out, working on specific use cases, building solutions for that, and then coming back to the larger group and saying, okay, what part of this can we abstract to fit all the use cases? What part is specific? And then sort of building like the Cardano developer kit or suite of tools from those abstract pieces, because not everything's going to be relevant to each other use case, but a lot of stuff will. So I like the idea of going in both directions.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm trying to say, yeah.
Cambrian explosion, baby.
Boom.
I'm wondering if another way to think about it. So in my mind, building these general tools is the hardest part. And when I look, for example, at Roberto, and I know that he's got a better idea of how to do that than I do, I tend to trust that approach of when he says, look, I can build you the tools, but I can't think about the use case, right? While I do that. To me, that's a signal that maybe thinking about the roles is the critical approach here, right? Because if Roberto and whoever is fully committed to making these tools that work, then the test of those tools and the one or more use cases, the eventual Cambrian explosion, that comes from a different set of people tasked with taking the hardest work, right? The hardest work is building these things right here to get all this to work, right? And once we have those, then a different set of us can actually create these use cases. My instinct is to advocate for that right now, but I'm wondering if that idea makes sense to people.
It does, and I actually added one sticky note to address that in a way that if you now, let's say Roberto is doing something, hey, I got the call from like a network if you press this, then now you can create the ticket and you can receive the ticket in that many times. So something specific. But okay, the use case is only for us maybe in the Gimbalabs to know that, okay, if you press this button and then you agree that we meet this time, or let's say, but if you put it out like, hey, we have this tooling, you can set up your time, the other people might not understand how did you actually get to this point, like how did you pull it up. So if you are missing documentation or the guidelines, how to teach to somebody else to get to the same point where did you start from, then you will have like missing links what others have to like sweat to achieve. And it could, I don't know, I think it would be in this situation where we are, where we build open source tooling, we will be more efficient if we teach everything we do and like keep everybody up to date. The more people are rolling down the hill at the same time, the bigger the impact.
I fully agree, and that's why we are doing coding on chain, to trying to expose these rationales, the thinking process behind building this solution, pivoting from one technology to another, and exposing why we felt like limited with Cardano metadata, and then we pivoted to IPFS, discovered OrbitDB, all that. And that's why I was thinking the other day that maybe we could have all these conversations, maybe not on coding on chain, but having like a radio station where people could tune. And yeah, because I found very, very, very valuable the conversation Sasha, OCG, A, James, basically all of you had on our Discord channel. Maybe at this early stage where we cannot really write any documentation or thought process, how can we write all that down? Even if we use sticky notes, we miss the cohesion between them. Yeah, that's something that I don't need to think that it will work. We are getting people interested on coding on chain just because they get identified with us, saying, okay, I was thinking how the hell I can do that, where to start, and you really got me into this fairy tale of building on blockchain. Don't know, what do you think about having this conversation in a more open way? Even though if we publish these links on Discord, we are not really having them publicly. I understand that not everybody feels like doing this publicly. I myself found it a difficult thing. I knows that I really wanted to talk about decentralized ID, but I felt like, okay, I'm not sure if I'm ready to tell anybody anything about decentralized ID. So I don't know what you think about all of this, to fill that gap that Tigo just that's.
Okay, but then now you said that it's important, and we are already doing it. So we should like write these things down here, like with what you guys are already doing, and how could we contribute, and add it as a link, like to here, or.
Yeah, I mean, we are writing some documentation on the events ticketing system repository. I myself wrote a very pre-alpha diagram, which is somehow somewhere in the Mirrorboard also. Yeah, I think we can start just committing. So also the track is recorded as git commits, or
Mm. I really like this idea of, in a way, what Roberto just suggested there is to have more exploration, which by default, the documentation kind of happens, and the richness of where all these conversations are kind of taking place to be, in and of themselves, sort of like communicate, or a documentation of the evolution. I think that's really beautiful, because I think when we think of documentation, we tend to think of it in a strict manner, which is in a strict manner, which is it has to be text, it has to be formal, etc., etc., which makes sense, yes. But there's additional value in actually seeing where how we arrived at what we arrived at, right? There's a bunch, like, that's one of the things I really love about Ethereum, when they have these open dev calls. I'm like, why haven't IOHK been doing that, right? For some reason they do it when they work on ETC stuff, but not on Cardano stuff. That has always bugged me, and that would be one thing which I would ask for them when they do the next like 5-year thing, for them to have. But to come back to this idea, I really like it, and I want to sort of have additional conversations about how we can basically communicate this journey moving forward in a richer way, not just for the sake of it, but to actually in a way communicate to other folks who are interested in coming to join us, to build here, but also even those who are not, to just look and see, hey, these are people who have done this thing in public, right? Someone who might just be a user, right? To be able to look to and be like, wow, okay, that actually engenders trust for me to actually see how these guys have done this in really, in a public and accountable way. So I think there's a bunch of value there. To come back to this idea of general versus specific, I feel like we're getting lost in the weeds, where I think I'll communicate how I see the general idea and how I see specifics. I'll start with specifics. I think specifics are great because we actually are in line with creating a similar environment, which is, what we're trying to achieve with optimizing for asynchronicity, right? We're in different time zones, a whole bunch of variables. So like we should be optimizing for asynchronicity. I like what we're doing with GitLab. And that stuff, being able to self-assign, etc., having that published to Discord, etc., like that's really awesome. Into the calendar, awesome stuff. However, I feel like there's a bit of a disconnect in how in some thinking in terms of the specificity, right? If we approach the specificity of, say, events in a way which has natural selection built in, so person number one comes with an idea of like, hey, I want to, build events for X, and then person two comes along and they want to build events for Y. The team as a whole ought to be able to be like, oh, I like that, and this person, has come to the playground and so created their own branch, and like, okay, I'm going to contribute to that, whatever my skill set is, I'm going to contribute to that, because I feel like not only has a person been able to communicate the value and their thinking, in a way that allows me to understand, oh, once this thing comes online, there's going to be a bunch of value, compared to say a different one which might be quite myopic, and someone might be like, that's not to me, contributing to that wouldn't be as effective. So I think in including or implementing the sort of the specificity in that way, I think will be awesome. Now to go about the general, I think being able to extrapolate, the best practices, kind of like what Nick said, like, figuring out, okay, what's general, what's specific, doing that, say, for example, in an interface which would then allow anyone online to come up and create an event, right? An interface, in a way, kind of like maybe, the token interface that I forget that Vuk was presenting, the equivalent of that, but now for, as opposed to creating tokens, creating an event, right? Where Joe blogs, your average Joe comes along and is able to use this interface to create an event. To me, that's how I see general, right? Being an outcome which will exist in some point in the future, but it will be as a result of all these like natural selection explorations of the specifics. It would be kind of like an amalgamation, so to speak. But yeah, monologue over.
I want to go back to the way Matthew said it earlier, where he was talking about, right, if ideally we could have enough people to be developing several different solutions at the same time. And that idea has been really helpful for me thinking about that for the last few minutes. Because when I think about, let's take any of the, Roberto named identity, workflow, smart contracts. I think a lot of work has been done more recently in IPFS interaction or encryption. Let's just talk about IPFS encrypted data for just a moment. There's not that many right answers to that. There might be just one way to do that right, and you just get it done. And if there is more than one way to do it right, it's because maybe there's one way for images, one way for audio, one way for whatever, right? Another data structure. But there's not that many ways to do it, and you don't actually gain much by having parallel teams all pursuing the solution to IPFS encryption. You want one team finding the small subset of the best ways to do that. On the other hand, we do benefit a lot from having several parallel teams looking at applications, looking at use cases at the same time. And what's become clear in my mind over the last half hour or so is that I can visualize having a dedicated team who doesn't care about context, whose only job is to do this stuff as right as possible. And then for one or more teams to be focused on then building out the specific use cases and to create communication pipelines in both directions. This team builds out an extensible tool. They show it, maybe in the context of this meeting, maybe in the context of asynchronous documentation, however we might define that. They show these tools to the people charged with creating the specific use cases. These people go and they beat the heck out of these tools, right? They try to make them work. And sometimes the tools will work, other times they won't. And now there's a back and forth. Hey, we tried to use your IPFS encryption tool for this use case, but we ran into this snag. Help us update that. Now we have a feedback loop moving between the two. And this is a distinction we really haven't quite made yet. And it's not exactly back end, front end, which were the words we defaulted to at first. There is back end work to do here, even once these tools are made, right? So like we're going to need little full stack pods of people, and the number of those pods we can create defines how many parallel projects can be going. I'm assuming we only have the personnel for one of these right now, and maybe a virtual event would be the right way to go. But if we get lucky and we find ourselves with 2 or 3 sets of people, awesome. We know how to now deploy those people. But at the end of the day, you're giving the people who are willing and able to make this stuff work, we're able to really give them space to focus and then to be giving them the ongoing feedback they need.
Yeah, I think such a model can work really well. I've seen this work very productively within team. Like, because you often work on a bigger project, you have several teams. If you're working with small 5, 6 people teams, then often you want to work with several teams. And in some cases, it is useful to run teams in parallel. You might even say that, well, it's still maybe too early to split into really the more like a engine team, because that's maybe the right word, right? They're building the engine, and then you have other people who are using the engine. And then yeah, there's more back-end work in the engine team, but they might also want to make front-end stuff, and they definitely want to have people who are more on the communicating side with their customers, but then their customers are other teams instead of it's more like an internal B2B system, but very close knit, right? So you can have a review from the engine team, and the people who are there as stakeholders in that meeting are people who are representing the other teams. And at the same time, they're feeding back information into the sort of the engine part to let them know about use cases and yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like we're touching a different part of the elephant, like it's the same elephant. Um, but yeah, so basically, but I think we're in agreement that working in sort of decentralized way, and I feel like what's great, going back to an awesome point which was made earlier about creating roles. This would be awesome because, like, say you have one person pursuing a particular event. They can basically just say, hey, at playground folks, or at specific say the encryption team or whatever, right? I'm going to be working on this particular thing, or I have this bug, as James said, which then you're able to corral the specific people around a specific problem. You can then jump, say, into VC if people are around, and solve that. So in a way, you have this like really awesome ebb and flow that allows for different ideas to develop in sort of different ways, and still retain the richness and the autonomy of sort of like of everyone contributing.
Wow, yeah, this has been really productive. Continuing on those roles, maybe that A brought up, maybe we should define some of these roles. I mean, we've already had the engine team, right? There's an application team, I guess. That's like the counterpart to an engine team. Like you're using the engine to build an application. And maybe going back to what James was talking about when Steve was on here, I think he's still on here. Like we need people like that are the glue. So like a glue team, I don't know, where you like communicate new features from the engine team to all the application app team developers, and like keep this Cambrian explosion thing going on.
Yeah,
So,
for that, I think also roles can be important, because one tricky thing is if you make a separate team to be the glue, then that really quickly implicitly creates a hierarchy. But if all the teams or groups have specified communicators, like people who have a role to communicate outwards to other teams what that team is doing, and they get together to once a week to just talk high over, hey, what is every team doing? And they communicate that internally to the people they're working with. I mean, that's just the base layer. Of course, people should really feel free to communicate as members individually between different teams if they, that's not the only route, but that's sort of the base layer guarantee. But that way the teams can be more autonomous, like self-organizing within themselves, right? Because then you have otherwise a glue team that is sort of starts coordinating. That's can be tricky.
Potentially,
then, go ahead.
I just got to add to Matthew's point and Soshia's point as well. Potentially, because you referenced Steve, and I suppose also Juan as well. If we could have testers, right? Just folks who would say, oh, I don't particularly fit in any particular place, but I'm a human who you're building these things for, and it would be good to just sort of like reference, hey, testers, like, does this make sense? Like, because some things might be obvious to those who have their heads too deep into different situations, and it helps to just to just add testers to get some feedback, kind of thing.
Yeah, you guys are deep. I get so much respect for all y'all. I would not be worrying about documentation for the public. I would put public your broad concepts, but this documentation, what y'all are doing is so non-linear, right?
Yep.
Right. I mean, there's so many moving parts to this that, you do not want to spend your time on Discord explaining this shit to every noob that comes along, so, I wouldn't put it out there. I would keep it, so that anybody who's actually got something to add technically has access to it. But, like IOG's DID system, yeah, it's all open source, but who gets to see it? I can't find it. They're not ready. So I'd really take that approach also.
We're gonna tell a lot of stories over time. There's a lot of stories to tell, and we are committed to telling really high quality stories. And so we know our vision is to get this stuff out to as many people as possible, and we fully intend to deliver on it. And I hope that nothing about this project indicates otherwise, right? If anything hasn't been shared yet, it's purely because we're going so deep that we're not ready to share it yet, right?
Exactly.
And the simple fact is it has been shared. People can go watch Roberto and Kyle go deep on YouTube right now, right?
Yeah.
The docs, right? Trying to perfectly document a project while it's happening is the privilege of being overstaffed, which we are not. So we're going to do as much as we possibly can with the people we have. Now, that said, just speaking very personally, this is not a systems level comment, but as somebody who will be on an application team, I'm really eager to both do some building and tinkering and to doing some communication about it. I'm really excited to do both of those things. And it may work out really efficiently and elegantly for stories to be told as use cases are built. And if that happens, heck yeah, like more power to us, right? But we have to be really focused on the amount of time we have, and it's quality first. This is not this. All of us are sitting here because we are people who are attracted to doing over saying, right? I mean, we are building high quality things. We'll tell people about them once they're built, and we're in no hurry to go shouting about things that aren't done yet.
Yeah, I agree. Just a quick, just high level thing here as we're naming the roles. I am inclined to suggest that we follow, a thing that James, has been quite keen on, which is this idea of actionable, right? So as we come up with his names, if we can, make them more verbs than nouns, I think that would be helpful. Like testers, right? Like that's the thing, as opposed that's the action, as opposed to like maybe engine, right? So yeah.
So yeah, I think that's beyond the scope of what we can accomplish in the next 13 minutes, but it's absolutely the next step, right? We are going to want good names for those roles. And as a debrief task for all of us, I think there's value in that. And right, teams, multiple is an ideal. It's one that just for practical reasons, we may not achieve right away. And one thing I'm going to take away from this meeting is, look, because of how many people we have right now, it may be the most practical thing to have one application team. But everybody on that application team should be looking ahead to where each of them are seeding the next round of application teams, right? So if we're able to, for example, pull off virtual events first, and then A leads a team focused on movie tickets, and I lead a team focused on concert tickets, and so on and so forth. I think we can see this first iteration of these as a pathway towards the parallel teams that we're talking about moving forward. If that doesn't come to light, it's cool. Or if we suddenly have enough people to make 2 or 3 teams, even better. All right. So with just over 10 minutes left, the rest of this web is here just as reminders of what else we're doing in the background. I'm not going to spend time reading over this right now, but I wanted this to be here just to frame this project in the bigger picture. In addition to building software, we are really looking at the systems that are going to make Gimbalabs thrive. And so just be taking all of this. It's already come up organically, but be taking everything we're doing here as, hey, what's effective and what do we need to do better? So we're only 19 minutes behind schedule, not bad. So we don't have 30 minutes to go through action steps, but let's do what we can with these, with moving towards formal specifications. For anybody who wasn't around last night, these are just questions we were asking each other last night. And we didn't record all of them perfectly, but these are the ones that happened to make it onto the page. If we wanted to write a few formal specs for the next week, which of these feel most relevant to everybody? You know, what can we assign to the engine team and to the fledgling application team to get done in the next 7 days?
Where does the data live?
Keep going.
I wanted that one as the first one also.
Yeah, I feel like maybe the existing standards make sense because it kind of evolves the stuff. Right, evolves the stuff that we've already been looking into.
How are we identifying agents and entities? That's
super important.
Yeah.
I'm just laughing because, like, so far there was 3 actually typed in by me.
Great.
Let's see. Oh no, how much security? I think going back to James's point of encryption, right? Like, I feel like, yeah, there might not be many answers to, like, the encryption question. However, I feel like for me, I think my medical information, for example, like, I would like it to have, like, probably more denser encryption on it, or more complex encryption on it, compared to, like, I don't know, my status, right? If you build in an equivalent of like a Twitter, which is just, like a, my status, this is what I'm up to right now. Yeah, I feel like someone's gonna say something.
I would disagree to add it right now. We just recently we just had a problem about doing PGP key to a new person, so he could add like GitHub comments and stuff, and it's just extra work to handle. And right now, to get stuff out and to show what is possible is like more important.
Well, okay, but I appreciate you saying that. But however, if we're building applications which are using databases which are publicly, like, even, like IPFS, for example, if you're saving stuff in there, say for example of a chat history log or something, someone's address, right? If you're, location information, like, we really ought to consider fundamentally encryption, because it's not that difficult. And like, it could be made more complex, but I think fundamentally the idea here of creating these silos in an environment which is distributed, you need it to live out there in a way that's encrypted. It can't be, like, that's super central, the way I see it, at least.
I do agree. I mean, how much security do we need? As much as possible. That's not even a question. And given that security in software development, it's again a mind state, you need to start thinking about it as a process while building. I mean, that's not gonna work if you have security auditories when you have the final product ready. You need to incorporate the security mindset in the whole development process, or you will probably be screwed up when you
down the line.
Yeah. So how much? Yeah, please go.
I just want to throw out, in my poking my nose around in the Elrond community, somehow in their mobile app, that's also their wallet, they have this graded level of security, right? They've got the level of security for grandma, but then as you go deep and as you get involved in the ecosystem economically or whatever your involvement is, then there's different levels of security. So it might be worth taking a look at whatever they've got there, but that graded level of security, I think, is valuable and useful, right? For all the people who don't know what's going on, like me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's a good reference to be able to see how they communicate that.
And also about sensitive data, like how do you deal with GPDR, general data protection on this decentralized world? Because if you have a central server where you have your database, in Europe you have some laws to be compliant with, that if you are storing on IPFS, the only law that will protect you is that it's you. If you put unencrypted data out there, you are sold. That's why I think we should really take care of that from the beginning. So I'm not sure about laws and regulations, how they apply to this type of truly decentralized applications. And I don't know who to ask about them, but it would be cool to at least know if we need to apply to some standard. And I would say I will avoid to store sensitive information on these applications and make it like a zero knowledge.
There is something interesting in GDPR that when a customer tells you to delete his data, you have to do it, but in a blockchain you can't do it. So yeah, I guess we need to show a way to how we like cache his data so we don't even find ourselves. But that we need to somehow prove it that we don't know where it is.
I'm thinking, like, do you just encrypt it and throw away the key or something like that? You go, but you can't even do that, right? Because it's not mutable.
No.
So you cannot re-encrypt it. or I don't know.
You actually, okay, I don't know, yeah, what is in Cardano, but I have read in a white paper that somebody, I don't know, was it in some kind of California white paper? Okay, doesn't matter. So there was a place that in a smart contract you write the way in that you can make it the new version, but you have the newer version will have a new owner, and the owner is unknown, like somehow like that. But I assume it's like same way, you just encrypt it and throw away the private key, but somehow proved that they throw it away.
Okay, so you
Yeah,
don't
I do
mutate.
think that this is one of the reasons why it's really good to differentiate like which work is going towards a prototype and which work is going towards an actual commercialized product. Because once you open up that's like a Pandora's box in this space, right? And I think it's really because then yeah, you have to be specific about which location, which country, which laws. Like you can't just say like, oh, this is just for everyone everywhere in the world and just expect that to be fine, right? And I don't even I think it's distracting for the technical work that you can already do just building a prototype all the way to a technically functional app, but not release it as an actual commercial product. And you can always start figuring those things out. I do agree that even though you say that, given the new technical space we're in, it's still good to design, even if that's for the prototype part, security in from the start. Like I don't say we shouldn't do that, but I think it's good to sort of have an idea of what is work being done towards just more prototyping and what is work being done where you actually need to consider these kind of things, because I think it just adds a lot of discussions, right? And internationally it's just super complicated, and I mean you need like experts for this, and I don't think anyone are those experts. And then yeah.
So my wife might be able to help with this. She works for an evil advertiser, but she knows a lot about how things work under the hood, and she knows a lot of international law. So maybe that's my pathway to pulling her away from that and getting her to come help.
Yeah,
Awesome.
but data privacy compliance is a tricky thing, especially internationally. It can suck up like a lot of time and a lot of work. Yeah.
Whilst I mean, I appreciate Roberto bringing this up in terms of GDPR. However, I feel like at least the way I see it, I shall communicate it. Not now. This is a much longer, bigger conversation. However, like the way I see it, like it won't be much of an issue in terms of at least the way I see it being implemented, right? Because within having combed through GDPR, like there's a whole bunch of things like the definition of a data controller, and a whole bunch of other definitions, which just cease to really exist if you implement it in a particular way without compromising the spirit of what GDPR is actually supposed to be providing.
Okay.
And also we could keep it like, as Sasha said, this could take us like years of discussions with lawyers, but we could keep this sensitive data agnostic. We can just treat identity as a hash. And yeah, what came to my mind is it's okay in, for example, in the United States to let someone enter a theater without really having a track of their identity on the receipt, on the payment, or whatever. Because if we build this prototype and we want it to be used at some event to tell the success story case, let's say next year, we really need to have that we need to know if we can control access by tokens. That's fine or not. Even if we don't want to store sensitive data. I mean, is it legal to let people access venues without having a thread to pull to identify them? That's what I was wondering.
I'm keeping a call waiting right now, but I just bought myself a little extra time. If we can just go through these really quickly. So these specs feel really good. These formal specs feel necessarily longer term, like what Roberto's saying right now. But these three do feel like things we can move the ball forward on in the next 7 days. That feels good. Is it okay with everybody if I just straight up delete this one? Because we kind of answered this question today. How extensible is this first thing? Okay. And then it seems to me a lot of this, not all of these, but a lot of these questions here will fall to the app develop teams to answer in their own way. And we may need to lean on engine builders to get insight about these questions, right? But I feel pretty good about saying that this is an initial framework, incomplete, of course, that application teams are going to need to answer in order to get their work done.
Yep.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Cool. So let's offline catch up on getting an application team going. Personally, I'm much happier with this term and engine team than front end and back end, or I like the term comms, and I think that falls to application teams. But to me, these feel like helpful words to talk about the division of labor.
Could you just zoom in a little bit on those?
Yeah, application teams and
Cool, thanks.
so we got a little overlap there. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you.
It's really fun to try to keep track of what the other team is doing, but we'll also, as time goes by, build more formal connections between these as well, right? And how communication works. But that's a work in progress, and we can learn that by doing it. I will make these changes on Discord today, and let's follow up with each other offline to set up the work of these two meetings. Okay, so Roberto, I think you're representing the engine team here today. So thanks. And then the rest of us have been engaged in that engine team work, but I think you guys have written most of the code. So obviously those conversations will continue. The rest of us can really start sketching this out. Matthew, thanks for being here today, man. We'll talk
Okay,
soon.
bye guys. Thanks. Great discussion.
Yeah, awesome, dude. See ya.
Yeah, and then this will fall to kind of talking about schema. Engine team is already doing this. And this is an initial place where maybe the conversation goes back and forth, right? For my application, I need a ticket to be defined as such. But for my application, I need a different ticket, right? And so this is going to give us a really cool way to figure out how those communication channels work. Who's got questions or any final thoughts?
One final. I'll be, I guess, hanging around in the Gimbalabs just after the meeting. If anybody wants to talk about, I guess, sort of team structures or things like that,
Cool.
or anything else. But I'll be available for a bit.
I'll be away for the next like 2 hours or so, but after that, we'll try to pop in there.
Hey, appreciate y'all. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Steve.
Take care.
Thanks, Steve. Take care.
A, I'm proud to share that the Gimbalabs site now lives on GitLab.
Ah, nice. Good progress.
And we will be mirroring, pushing every commit to GitHub because stars
Yeah. Reach and yeah.
mass audience it
on
comes
GitHub.
from GitHub. So
Yeah.
but yeah, we can work on GitLab.
Awesome.
More to come on all that. Guys, thanks for this.
Yeah.
Thank you, James, for putting all this together, and hey, and everyone.
Yeah.
This is getting more and more like a team every week.
We are having big insights, and there's a lot we're gonna share. Kevo, we're gonna tell this story together. Okay.
Is Tevo not
He's
on?
muted.
Where is he?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I'm on. Actually, I kind of lost the last words what was mentioned there because I was in Discord sharing Gimbalabs again.
Cool.
I'm gonna take a look to Dandelion. Sync is drifting. My SMS says.
Sync is drifting. Hey, you got a text response about that? That's cool. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for this. Yeah, pumped about how this team is coming together.
See you guys.
Yeah,
All right.
see you.
See ya.
Bye. And we still don't. By the way, did you check the link I sent in chat? Because I haven't read it all. And you talked about meeting, like event of meeting, and I'm not sure how I like shared with you that, but I also had a rundown with my team and with Rich Kopcho, the NFT DAO creator, and his team about creating a DApp where you can like choose a calendar time and when you want to meet, and then from that DApp you send a link to somebody else and he will see all the backlog of what first was like voted on or what time zones they want to meet. And once the epoch reaches to the endpoint, they will both see from the same link that the list of overlapping dates they could meet, and then they vote on which day and time they will meet.
Could you put the link in the event ticketing channel, please?
But that link leads to my Mira board, so I don't know, would that be weird? Because that's a totally different thing.
Could you then share it in the chat here then?
Yeah, I
Please.
shared it. Okay, did it again.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. I see it. Good. I scrolled up. I couldn't see it before. Copy. Boom.
Guys, I'm gonna pop out of here. I don't know if it's gonna kick you out, but if I have an option.
Yeah. No.
Probably.
Yeah, it will. That's fine. Yeah.
Bye.
Go for it. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
That's all right. Cheers.